Welcome back to another episode of the Gap Down Backer podcast. Today we have a special guest with us. He is the offensive line coach at Kutztown University in Pennsylvania. Coach Pat Taylor. Coach, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good, Coach. Doing good. Today we're going to talk a little pin and pull and just offensive line stuff today. But before we kind of get there, is there how do I word this? How did you end up where you are at now? Let's word it that way.
So, I played college football at Lycoming College in Williamsport, PA, and graduated there in 2009. Went back, grew up in Philadelphia, went back to Philly for essentially 2 years, and then got offered the running backs job in a kind of a pinch. Right before the season started, a job opened up, and I got a call from my old head coach, Mike Clark, and he asked if I'd be interested. So, coached the running backs at Lycoming for 3 seasons, and then transitioned into a full-time role as the offensive line coach for 3 seasons, and then interviewed and got offered the offensive line job here at Kutztown in the spring of 2017, and have been here since.
Okay, and kind of what is your more? Are you more of a? I mean, I know we're going to talk pin and pull day, which is kind of more of a. I would define it more as a gap scheme, more into scheme. But are you more of a zone or gap offensive line coach? Because it seems like, from my experience talking to O-line guys, is you're in one of two camps, preferably. You probably can coach both, but there's one you massively prefer.
Yeah. Honestly, this is maybe a cop-out answer. We'll run whatever our kids are good at.
Okay.
And it's a little bit on me to figure that out. So year to year, it can obviously change. We've played with really the same group up front for my 3 years at Kutztown. Okay. We've had a couple guys in and out, but those guys have been predominantly pretty good zone and pin pull guys. So that's where we've been.
Okay.
More athletic than, strong.
Okay. And then what for you guys, what is pin and pull?
Pin and pull is really a base run that we have. I won't define it necessarily as a gap scheme or even a zone scheme. Certainly not zone. It's kind of a man scheme for us, where you have, a tight end and an offensive lineman blocking, down, and then you have a couple pullers who are going to designated people. It allows us to show our athleticism, and it's something that our guys believe in a lot. And it's kind of taken on a life of its own for us, honestly.
Okay. And so let's talk rules for a second. Because I talked to another coach a couple weeks ago, and his big thing was just how the rules worked out. Their center got out a lot on the pull. For you guys, what does that front side and back side of the pin and pull scheme look like?
So backside, I'll start backside. Backside guard and tackle are predominantly zone blocking the backside. Okay. It can be dictated based on the alignment of the linebacker, how you do it, whether it's a true zone scheme where you're scooping the backside, or it could be more of a base on the guard and the tackles up to the linebacker if he has leverage right now. I let those guys call that the line of scrimmage. I trust them to make the best decision they feel. On the front side, it's really the tight end's going to have the defensive end and against 4 down. And then between the tackle and guard, the way I teach it is where will the guy be post-snap? All right, is he a post-snap B-gap player or is he a post-snap A-gap player? So a lot of teams is what we've started to see is, teams might want to blitz us or they might want to just slant, and kind of bait us into who's pulling. Well, if we play some teams and we can figure that out, then there'll be a time where there's a 3 technique and the guard stays on because he knows he's slanting A-gap. Or there'll be times when a tackle blocks down on the 2-eye because he knows he's going to the B-gap. And whoever's not blocking down is the first puller. And the backside or the second puller will be the center about 98% of the time, I would say.
Okay. You mentioned tight end there. Did you what personnel do you guys preferably run it out of? Obviously, you want a tight end there ideally to kind of make things work, but from a personnel standpoint, what do you guys typically look at when you're running your pin and pull?
I mean, for us, it's just it's either 11 or 12 personnel. And it can be tight end wing. It can be true double tight. It can be any variation of an 11 personnel, whether it's a 0x3 set or is a 3x1 set to the field or 2x2 with the tight end into the boundary. The biggest thing, we're going to run it every week. The biggest thing for us is just which formations give us what we believe are the best angles to execute. So we won't necessarily, I won't tell you like, oh, every time we go to run it in 12 personnel, we'll run it to the field or to the boundary or to a 7 or a 9 technique. It's just kind of how do our guys feel comfortable running it everywhere. And it's just what do we feel like is the best advantage for our guys against the defense that given week.
Okay. And then, I mean, how much, and I don't know y'all's level as well as probably should, but how much variety do you guys get in defensive schemes and looks to your offense?
So most of the defenses that we see are based 4 down. I felt like we saw just about every variation of how you can play 4 down, whether it's an over or under front, whether it's a pushed Mike front, whether it's one of the fronts where you got safeties fitting into the box. So it's a lot of 4 down stuff. We do see some 3 down, depending on who we're playing. But it's predominantly 4, which is where you just kind of start with.
Okay. And then I'm going to go back to your double tight stuff. Or when you do run this out of double tights, what does that do for the backside tight end in terms of rule-wise?
He's zoning it as well. So okay. He's responsible for whoever is the backside C-gap player in the defense.
All right. And then do you do any – because my buddy asked me this question the other day when he was asking about some pin and pull stuff is how much do you from a pass pros perspective, do you incorporate the pin and pull with it? Because I know some people will show pin and pull, but it'd be more of a pass pro look than it is a run scheme for them. They kind of combine in their play action game. I'll phrase it that way.
We got to it later in the year. I think when we were in the playoffs, we had a couple shots of it where it was open. We plan on doing more in the next time we can play games. But we don't RPO it a ton because our guy wasn't great at it. Yeah. I have seen people who they'll RPO by reading the backside safety or the backside linebacker. We didn't live in that world, but we have done it in the past. Okay.
And then is there any specific coaching points for you or drills that you have to do to run this scheme? Is there anything that you very harp on? Yeah.
So for me, the biggest thing we have to get the backside block.
Okay.
If you get the backside block, you probably have a pretty good play. The front side blocks, regardless if it's the down block or it's the pullers, don't need to be kill shots. Everyone wants to. If you're blocking down on a 3, all you really have to do is get his way. And you can't allow immediate penetration up the field, and you can't get beat back across your face. So, again, understanding your opponent and how they're going to play it is where we start at for that week. Some teams are just going to play laterally down the line of scrimmage. Some teams are going to try to penetrate when they see pullers. So, we try to have an understanding of what we're going to see that week and then marrying up the technique with that. For the pullers, it's eyeballing where you're going. And it's not always clean, but the biggest things we always really look for is, guys just running through blocks when they get to the second and third level. And I don't care if they whiff, because if they whiff on the block, they probably at least created a seam. And it's up to the running back to make them look right. So we found we get into more trouble when guys are getting there, pitter-pattering their feet, looking for perfect blocks, as opposed to just, hey, run full speed, run right through them, and if you miss, you miss. But that guy's probably moving left or right, which is, creating a crease for the running back.
Okay. And then, like, I mean, you mentioned some not motion, movement and blitzing. What is the most common way people like to attack this scheme against you guys?
I think everyone has it a little bit differently. I mean, certainly if you can get a defensive end just to win on the tight end, you probably like your chances if you're a defensive coach. Teams will try to blitz it. I don't really have a problem. If you want to blitz it, then fine. One of the coaching points that we have is that we want to get really good at this during preseason and during spring ball. And then that week of the games, we can kind of practice on whatever teams are going to try to do, whether it's overloads, whether it's middle crosses, whatever it is. And then at that point, we normally feel more comfortable with us blocking it than we feel that the defense can fit it correctly. Some teams will live on movement. They'll want to do some slants and stuff like that. And again, it's the same thing. Like our defense at Kutztown, those guys blitz when they come out of the locker room, whether it's for practice or for a game. So we've kind of seen it all. And, there'll be some plays that work for the defense and some that work for us. But if you're blitzing, you're going to give up a big play at some point, we feel like. So, again, we have ways to dress it up and things like that. But that's probably the best answer. If you just have really fast people on defense, that's probably the thing we hate to see the most.
I get that, Coach. I want to kind of move to some line play before we swing back to pin and pull at the end. What does a typical practice throughout the week look like for you, and how you structure it to develop your offensive line?
So we'll start our indie period. We have about 25 minutes for indie. The first 10 minutes will be stations that are normally run by the older guys. I break guys up into 4 groups, and on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, each station will be between a minute and a half and 2 minutes. And it'll be stuff that I think is necessary to do each and every week. Like we'll work on down blocks against movement. We'll work on scooping the backside. We'll work on pulls. We'll work on just dry blocks. We'll hit the sled. We'll do all these different things. We'll figure out what 4 we want to do Monday, what 4 we want to do Tuesday, what 4 we want to do on Wednesday. But the older guys run the group. It's a high tempo period, and we get a lot of our work in right there. Everyone will get 3 to 4 reps when they're moving correctly, and it allows us not to spend 20 minutes in groups of 15 or 16 guys. From there, we normally start to work on things that will give us issues. If we're running pin pull and they want to come with double A gap pressure, hey, what are our calls? What are we going to do to adjust? Who do we want the center to reach? Do we want the guard to block down? And letting guys talk and let them kind of own it. When they believe what they're doing is right, they'll probably do it better. So we'll go through some of the tougher looks that we think we might see in our indie period. And then we'll probably do, if we have time at that point, we'll do some different stuff with some pass pro drills similar to the run game stuff where we'll work on all the basics and then just go through tough looks. That's pretty much our practice. It's mastering the fundamentals, what's going to give us issues this week, and trying to focus on those things to make sure guys stay focused on those tasks at hand.
Now, if you're cut short on time, like, what are the 3 drills you have to do every day?
Run the cut, making sure guys aren't on the backside of our zone concepts, on our outside zone concepts, I should say, whether that's pin pull or just outside zone, making sure we're taking good footwork. I think that's a lot of what we run. And if we're good at that, we probably have a shot to be pretty good. Pass sets, with just understanding the rusher you're going against that week and understanding, can you underset them? Do you overset them? What's he want to do to you? Just making sure you're putting yourself in the best position possible. And then we do a finish drill where it's just a refit and finish that we do every day, which I think just stresses playing through the whistle and, never stopping your feet and playing with great effort. So those would probably be the 3 things for our offense that we would have to get to. And again, the rest would be look-specific stuff.
Okay. And, I mean, obviously you have a good idea because you kind of play, for the most part, the same guys every year. How much do you show different looks in practice throughout the week at your level, given the fact that, I mean, you probably have a good idea how somebody's going to line up to you based off film against you prior, and other teams that probably have similar formations to you. Kind of it's a little, in my opinion, probably a little easier than high school. How much variety of looks just in case do you show throughout the week?
We will. It might not be a variety of looks, but it'll certainly be a variety of answers from the defense. So if we're playing a team that just wants to play 42 over to a tight end, and they haven't shown a ton of blitzing or movement, we'll probably only practice blitzing and movement that week. And it'll look bad. Like Tuesday's practice might not be the best thing. Wednesday's practice may not be the best thing. It's really one of those things where I want to practice the hard thing because I think we can do if they just want to line up and play 42 defense and we want to call pin pull, then well, let's rock. We'll see how this goes well for us. So I normally just try to anticipate what I think they're going to do based on what they've done to us in the past and what they have shown on film. And even if it's not there, then we'll create it, right? We want to make practice as hard as possible. But we also want to make, like, guys have to think to play offensive line, but they have to understand what their keys are and what they're looking for and really not just being confused at the line of scrimmage to anything that they say.
Okay. And then, I mean, how do I word this? Like, how much, and because I'm always curious on how offensive line coaches do this in the offseason. What do you kind of look at and study in the offseason? Where do you go? Actually, it's really my curiosity with every coach. Who do you study? Who do you talk to? I mean, obviously, in a perfect world, all the offensive line coaches go to Cincinnati every year and have a good time. But this isn't a perfect world anymore. So who do you talk to? Who do you bug? I know you got on some Coach G's O-line stuff throughout this past offseason. But who are your primary people you reach out to and bug? And then what are you always looking at in terms of development? Is it drills? Is it technique? Is it scheme?
It's the people who I talk to the most, the two of them, I guess, would be Andy Marino, who's the offensive line coach at Elon. Was a teammate of mine, one of my best friends. He's a great resource, and we more or less do things completely differently. So it's good. It's good. He's a good guy to bounce things off of and kind of get his thoughts on things. And then Mike Clark at Lycoming was a offensive line coach for many years, and a guy who I'm still friends with, and I'll bounce things off of him. Those two guys are probably my two biggest references going back to my college days. Anyone who wants to talk, I'm always there to listen. I won't always take everything I hear, but I do want to hear differing opinions about why people do things differently. So if I can find videos of, like, we didn't run a ton of gap scheme stuff, so I want to learn more about gap scheme stuff so I can figure out if we have guys who can run it, what to do. In a perfect world, I try to figure out, like, postseason, like out of season, I guess out of season is probably the better term, film study. I try to find defenses, whether it's in the NFL or in college where the film's available, that run the same schemes that we see. And then what do those guys do that work? So, if we're playing a defense that wants to play a 5-1 box with, a bunch of bracket coverages, okay, well, does anyone in major college football play that? And then if you find out who, then, find the game where they got scored on and see what people were doing. Or a team that wants to play a bunch of, blitzing and play man, or what run schemes worked against them? Who, did anyone light them up? Things like that. And you might not get anything out of it. It might be a giant waste of time. But, you can always just find stuff to watch and figure out what translates to what we do. When it comes to player development in the off season, I'm a big picture guy. And the majority of the time I spend with our guys right now is explaining all of our run concepts and pass protections in the big picture. I don't, like, right now, I tell those guys I don't need to know, like, what the combinations are called. Like, I need you to be able to explain what all 5 guys are doing. And even if that means the center and guard are at the line of scrimmage and they can say, hey, we're going up to 22. It doesn't matter if it's a deuce, if it's a single, if it's an A. Like, they know where they're going and they know what their technique should be. The other thing we spend a ton of time on is just going through the defenses that we see. And you'll hear me explain a lot of what I see based on what gap defensive players are responsible for. So rather than saying, oh, the defensive tackle, I might say the A gap tackle or the B gap tackle, or, hey, who's the D gap player over here to the side? Like, your combination is going to a D gap player, because defenses are evolving, right? We got to the playoffs and you see it more and more where you used to have to go combinations to people, right? Like, hey, we're going to combo to that front side linebacker. Well, all of a sudden the front side linebacker's out of the box and your B gap player's a safety who's sitting there at 10 yards. Well, you better account for him if he's going to be in the run fit. So explaining to our guys how really they need to start seeing the game of football from a big picture standpoint, both offensively and defensively, and then being able to put our run concepts into that picture so that they can do a lot of different things.
Okay. And I kind of, before we move back to pin and pull real quick, do you guys track explosive plays at all?
We do. We track our own explosive plays and then what run concepts and what passing concepts going into that week have teams struggled with.
Yeah. And what do you guys define as explosive for run and pass?
In our own terms, I would say 7 to 8 yards. It can vary on the year. Some years we've said 7, some years we said 8 in the run game. When I'm watching another team going against, say we're playing Millersville this week, like I want to really focus on all the 5-yard runs. Like, what's getting teams 5 yards? So in that term, I'll put that as a 5-yard carry, and then see if there's any correlation, any consistency. Maybe it's a concept, maybe it's a formation, maybe it's a certain player on their defense who struggles with something, whatever it is, see if there's anything that stands out. Okay. But that's one of the first things we start on Sunday.
Now that might be the first time I've heard some. I mean, part of the reason why I asked the question is I hear people talk all the time about tracking explosive plays, and I'm always figuring out, okay, what is your definition of explosive? What everybody's got a different definition of it. But you're, I think, the first one I've heard to say that you track what other explosive plays somebody has done against them in terms of either looking at the formation or looking at the specific play. I think that's a very interesting, and actually I wrote down as a great idea. That's something to keep an eye on as you're going throughout the season.
Yeah, it makes life a lot easier if you can find something. It's like, okay, we got to make sure we run inside zone to the 3 technique this week because it looks like this keeps coming up. Or, maybe it's a even if you're looking at the passing game, maybe it's a corner who struggles with vertical routes or something. It's just have a big picture mindset to it, and you can kind of build from there. Like, I know we played someone in, I guess it was Shepherd in 2019. Like, those guys were just knocking down the inside zone left and right against the 3 previous opponents. Like, it just wasn't going anywhere. So when we looked at the negative play cut up on the 0 and 1 yards, like inside zone, inside zone, inside zone, I was like, guess what? We're not running a ton of inside zone. So to us, it's about being able to be like adjustable each week. Figure out what the defense doesn't want to see. Again, you never know what it is. It's all how you see it that week.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great little tidbit I just wrote down. I do want to swing back to pin and pull real quick. What are your guys' compliment plays off pin and pull that you seem to complement it well in terms of either run game or pass game?
I think for us, it's the variety in which we run pin and pull. Like I said, we don't run a bunch of RPOs off it at the moment. We got to some play action shots off of it for some of our playoff games, but we want to run it. And I know a lot of people say, okay, well, you got the running back away from the tight ends. There's your pin and pull, formation, and it allows the defense to kind of mess with it. So we'll run pin and pull to the quarterback. We'll run pin and pull to the same side. We will do it with a motion to the quarterback, to the running back. We dress it up, I think, as good as as anyone, to protect it. So we also run pin and pull to the open end with pinning an A gap tackle and wrapping the center. So I think in that sense we do a lot of it, but that's probably our best compliment is just the complexity of which we do it. Okay, so what I want to do is show some of the tougher looks I think that teams try to do to us. So here's our basic pin pull concept. We got 11 personnel, 2 receivers to the field, 1 receiver to the boundary. Again, based on the rules, we got tight end man on, guards man on. First puller, center will be the second puller. You have to scoop the backside. So to me, again, the biggest point is that we have to get 50 and the D tackle blocked. You'll see here is that Westchester's going to bring this Will linebacker off the edge. And it's a good job by our left tackle of seeing it. I don't know if this was necessarily their answer to us or not, but we called them with a good one. Again, back to my point of being fine with them blitzing us to this look. Guard will be on the D tackle. Again, doesn't need to be a kill shot, just gets in his way. And you see 52 ends up fighting off the block but can't make the play. Here would be another clip of it. We're just going to use a little bit of motion to dress this thing up. Let me move these out of the way here. And all of this is to do, a lot of the times, is just to slow these guys up. Slow up number 6, slow up the safety. You see the corners running with the motion. That they're losing their alley defender. Here's a good look at their defensive end slanting away from the blitz. All right, and the biggest rule for our guys is don't pass up color. Right, let's get this thing started. So, pretty good job by our center and our right tackle just getting started. All right, nice job by their kid chasing that thing down. It's the defensive lineman catching it from the backside. So, again, pressure away from it, pressure to it. Here we're in our double tight set. All right, and this is again a little bit of a different front. They want to play with overhang players. We're going to run this into the boundary. We have the ability to run it either way, just counting the numbers. So we want to run it into the boundary. This look, our tight end actually just gives a down call, all right, saying that he doesn't have anybody on him, so he's going to go block this linebacker. All right, everyone else's rules are going to be the same.
How much pistol versus shotgun in comparison do you run these out of?
I would say we're probably 80% shotgun,
okay.
10% or 20% pistol. Again, if we think we have a big advantage running it out of the pistol, then we'll do it. So, again, everyone else's rules are going to be the same here. But to me, this is the biggest block, is that backside guard getting that guy sealed off pretty quickly. Here's a look at it from this angle. A little crooked. So all of these things back here are stuff that we always drill. You can use the one coaching point I do have to our guys, and I'll start probably doing this even more, is that you want to get the backside guys reached by the front side D gap. If you can do that, you have a good chance. So what that allows for our guys to realize is they can probably take 6 to 7 steps. The biggest issues I see a lot of people have is that they try to only take 3 steps and then they get beat back across their face. So I think there's some shots of some different techniques that we actually use here. Here's another 12 personnel run. Again, we can choice it to whatever side we want to go to. Here we're going to run back into the boundary, and we have the running back more or less just take a little shuffle step and then get behind the second puller.
Is that kind of a preference for you guys? Is to be able to go out at 12 because you can run it in either direction, doesn't give anything away?
Again, I think it's just what the look gives us. Okay. So if I think versus a lot of 4-2 teams, 12 personnel can give you that ability. But you have to have the 2 tight ends who can block the edge. And it is a good – I think people struggle to fit it. out of this personnel. So this one here, our left guard is technically wrong because he slows down to take 10. He has the alley player. You'll see from this angle. He should be going to 13. 10 was a heck of a player, and we really told our guys, if you're the first puller, you want to have an eye inside for 10, and then let the center make you right. So he just overruns it a little bit, honestly. 44 was also a heck of a player, too. He had some good linebackers at Notre Dame. This is a different variation where we have, again, running back to the same side. A lot of people will tell you this is an inside zone kind of surface over here. We're going to block these guys inside, and then we're going to pull for the two widest guys.
Okay.
This is good for if you have a linebacker you're worried about beating you to the spot. You can always do this. This also can be a way to ensure that you either have a C-gap or D-gap defensive end if you're worried about doing that. I think, again, on the back side of things, when you do same side pin pull, the linebackers don't exactly know how to react to it. All right, you see us we're able to kind of gain a ton of leverage pretty quickly there. Here's a pretty good example of not stopping your feet. All right, our center, who's a really talented player, just go and get him, right? And if the running back probably makes a right there rather than the left, he might have scored anyway, but good run by the running back nonetheless. So a little different variation to it there. Here's the same thing. Again, we can protect these with bubbles. So, we got 4/3 out here, so we should have a pretty good running lane over to the boundary. All right. And again, good job by our guys. The defensive end makes a heck of a play, beats the tight end up the field, but let's not pass up color here. Our center makes them right. The left guard does a kick out, and we just outrun that first linebacker. All right. But you'll see, a lot of times these guys are looking in the backfield, these linebackers. So when you put this guy over here, he's going to mirror this flow, number 10. When he's coming across, he stops his feet. He allows himself to get blocked.
Now, how much do you work with, smart splits on it?
As far as, widening or shortening
Yeah, widening and
splits?
shortening, say your, tackle or your tight end for better angle on their block or to adjust some things.
Not a ton.
Okay.
We're pretty consistent with about 2-foot splits.
Okay.
Though, if you're trying to, what I would say is this: if you're trying to tighten your split to block a 3 technique because you might be worried about this,
Yeah.
then you should probably just tell the guard to stay on.
Okay.
Here's another look at it. All right, I'll give you from the wide because it's better. This is our tight end. Now this is our tackle. So, again, we were just trying to give them a different look. This is the first play of the game. This was a heavy man team, so we figured, if he used to be an offensive lineman, so we didn't worry about him scooping the backside. And we might have them defending him man-to-man when he's not even eligible. So our left guard is actually wrong. Our center makes him right. But you can see that they're actually outnumbered into the boundary here. And again, not a lot of shots when guys are just, making guys, hit the ground. It's just getting a piece of them, keeping your feet running, and staying engaged. And you can have some good success there. But against man-to-man teams are pretty good. Here it is against a 9 technique on the tight end or a D-gap defensive end. And, again, this is going to be to the quarterback. But we're going to fake outside zone, speed sweep away with the running back. And the idea is when you watch this half of the line of scrimmage, all these guys are going left. We're running, or they're going to their left. We're running to their right.
Yeah.
So some defenses will tell you, hey, put a 9 out there. They can't run outside of it. It basically becomes a variation of power to us at that point. We'll run right inside of it.
Yeah. So just read your kick out essentially is what it is.
Exactly. This is a technique that we do use. This is taught. Again, to keep the idea that we want to reach these guys by the front side B gap, I allow for guys to overrun the play. All right. And then what they can do, if they're athletic enough, they can just pivot back.
Okay.
So that's a fun drill. Guys really like it. Our right guard loved doing it. He did it a couple times in the year. Our left guard, not as much, but our right guard was athletic as I've ever had. But here again, you look at the pre-snap alignment of where 8 is. He's aligned in the front side A gap. He's going to get reached by the backside tackle, really in the backside A gap. Right? You see how quickly he gained leverage on it. And that's all this play is for me. It's all about leverage. We're going to motion. We're back to 12 personnel. All right. We do have another tight end into the boundary. Right. 2 receivers removed. We're going to motion the running back out here. And all this is that if the quarterback likes the bubble, he can throw it out there. If he likes to run, he can run it. All right. So you'll see here, again, to me, just manipulating the backside guys on this play. Right. The backside safety, the backside linebacker, they're both going to the right of the defense, and we're running to the left of the defense. And the block, when you watch it from the wide, if you watch the left guard here, great job of falling back on his block, getting a piece. Our left tackle's running. Quarterback does the rest. So, again, just manipulating the defense a little bit, and it makes it hard. It makes it hard for them to be right. And I think it's a pretty easy concept. I mean, it's follow the second forward.
Well, the main reason I'd been looking at it is because, like, my buddy was asking about it because he's got a new head coach and he moved to O-line. So he's kind of – it's one of the schemes they're looking at. And I was like, yeah, I can reach out to some guys, talk to some guys. Like I said, I have no problem doing that. Like, so he was on the last one. He couldn't be on today because I think he's got lacrosse because he also coaches lacrosse. So yeah, I think it's a cross practice or a game. I don't know. I couldn't – he said it and my eyes glazed over.
So here's a pretty good shot at. This is one of our playoff games against Tiffin. And if you look to the boundary here, like there's 3 pullers. There's 3 guys for the pullers.
Yeah.
Right? Like here's going to be your first puller. Here's going to be your second puller. We can't really account for this linebacker. So what we need to do is to bring him to the backside combination. All right? So you'll see is that we're just going to give a token play fake. We get him to move his feet.
Yep.
Watch it from this way. He's going to follow the backfield action. Now we have him leveraged. Right? And there's our hold to run it. So if you can't, all you have to do, in my opinion, is count the numbers. Right? How many second and third level players are over here? If the answer is 2, then you're fine. If the answer is 3 and it's still a surface that you want to run to, then you probably need to do something to get these guys to go this way.
Okay.
Now, again, if you're doing that motion or you're doing whatever deception you want and you can't, like this guy's not moving, then your answer is to run it here.
Yeah.
So, again, just kind of having some answers. But you see this, these are the stuff that we try to work on as much as possible. Right? Because the rest of this, a lot of this is natural. Like, I don't overcoach it. If you think you can get a guy slant across your face, I'll tell these guys to step with their outside foot first to catch it. But if you think he's going to be a penetrator or a B-gap player, then just drop, step, and run. And you want to get your hat to his outside shoulder pad.
Now, do you have a preference on the type of pull they use? I know some coaches say whatever's more comfortable with their kids, they teach multiple. Others, it kind of depends on the position. Is there a preference for you on this?
Yeah, I mean, I would tell them to skip pull. Okay. So, and the main reason why, say, again, if this guy were to run through, this would be the whole rule of not passing up color. Like, the center needs to be able to see a run through. So I would tell them to skip pull.
Okay.
If he can't skip pull, but he can open pull and run and still pivot back on that guy, then I don't care. Open him pull. So this is going to complement that play I just showed you. Now we're going to bring the running back across, and we're just going to read the defensive back. All right, and these again, with the numbers out here, there's 3-over-3. We feel pretty good that if this is a handoff, this could be a big play. All right, and they're just going to block for the perimeter run. So some people will tell you, as from a defensive coach standpoint, it's, hey, follow the pullers. That's where that's where the ball's going to be. Well, here again, that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah,
our pullers are going right. That ball's going left. So again, a way to cause confusion for the defense. Here we're running this out of 12 personnel. If you go pre-snap, right, the same look that we had against Assumption with the running back and the tight end and wing to the same side. Now we just motion the running back out. That takes away the bench defender. All right, and again, we're just going to send these guys down. And they can take the first linebacker inside the box. Here's a look at it from the tight. With him being a D-gap or a defensive end, he can go get the linebacker. He can keep him in. He's going to be down. The first puller has 6. The second puller really doesn't have anybody. But that makes them get into an empty check, a tight end wing check, and then we're just running what we're pretty good at. Here's another look. Again, we're running the same formation. We're going to keep the running back in the backfield. We're going to let the quarterback keep this, but where this one is unique is who we have pulling. This was against Gannon, and these guys, all the time, were moving these 2 guys. And, I sat there on Monday and Tuesday, and I tried to figure out, what's the easiest way to pull. So if you were to watch us against Gannon and we ran our pin pull scheme, every time the front side tackle pulled and the backside guard pulled, and these 2 were essentially walling off whoever was going to be the front side player of these 2 guys. So this one kind of looks like a glorified version of power with the way it works out. We're going to send the tight ends both down, kick out, pulling for the safety, let the misdirection happen, all right, and the tackle can end up on your Mike linebacker, who's pretty well protected here. Giving another look at it there. Again, all the center and guard we're trying to do is just stop whoever is going to be the front side player. This is something we like to do, again, just to create a little bit more confusion. Nothing hard for our guys, but we're going to read the front or the backside D tackle. So if he's going to haul and chase this thing down, the quarterback will just replace him. We'll base the tackle on the 5 technique, right, and we'll arc for the will linebacker in this case. Everyone else is just running the same play. All right, so we'll have the guard and center pull. All right, now again, you'll see when you just play fast, you sometimes don't even need to block the guys. They have a hard time fitting this. So our right guard sees this guy playing downhill. He goes to take him, not really his guy. But again, when we're playing fast, it's hard for them to fit the scheme, I think. To protect the play, again, this is going to be a screen that we have off of this, so we're just going to crack, and then we're going to leak the tackle out to lead the way. So we're going to give that same token play fake like we're reading the defensive end.
Ah, there you go.
So if you have a backside A-gap player, we tell them to try to keep them in there. With this look, it's just get a piece and then go. He shouldn't be able to make the play. And if this guy's making the play, then you just want to run regular pin pull there. So again, just creating a little bit more confusion and things of that nature for us.
Because obviously you recruit. Compared to where we as high school coaches are a little bit more limited on what we get.
Yeah.
How much, because of how successful you are being with this scheme, how much does that alter you in terms of recruiting? Like, okay, this is now what I'm looking for from my offensive line. Because I mean, you already said you modify your schemes based each year, but how much you can have some continuity and because you're just getting really good at it. How much does that factor into stuff there?
I mean, it kind of just fits who we are, right? Like we don't have a ton of money to give kids, especially compared to our competitors. So who are the first guys to always go off the boards? The biggest guys who you can run power and inside zone behind. So who's left? The guys that have to develop, who are normally a little lighter, a little more athletic, a little thinner, and that kind of fits what this scheme is. So we don't necessarily recruit to it. There is certain athletic qualities that we look for that I think even guys who are really good at running inside zone and power can run this scheme. We wouldn't probably, if a kid can't run this scheme, we wouldn't recruit him, but you'd be surprised how many kids probably can.
Okay.
Guys who play multiple sports isn't like we're big on that here.
Yes, please just say that multiple times, coaches, so I can just keep relaying that to every high school athlete that will not listen to that statement.
Yeah, we're not really. I'll be honest. Guys who do like private O-line drills in like the spring don't really fire me up. I'd rather have a guy playing, basketball in the winter or wrestling in the winter and then throwing shot put because you're going to learn how to block pin pull and you're going to learn how to run block and you're going to learn how to pass that doing all three of those things. So I'd rather have a little bit of a ball of clay from the technique so we can figure out which techniques work best for them rather than a guy who's so in one concept.
Okay.
Here's a little one again. We're just reading this guy here, and if he's going to play the run, we're just going to put the running back right up the sideline. So part of what we try to do at Kutztown in the run game, something I tell recruits all the time, like I want guys defensive players to go on the sideline and have no idea what we're doing, to be frustrated by what they're seeing, to not really understand what their reads are, and to have confusion. So that means our guys have to be smart and being able to adapt weekly, but it allows you to have some fun. Here's a look at the shot play. We don't connect on that. That's against Notre Dame. But again, nothing crazy. I tell the guys basically block who you're responsible for. And the only difference here is rather than blocking down on a free technique, I told the guard to base it. And the center's really looking three technique to Mike linebacker playing downhill. All right. We're doing this against a team that we didn't think was going to blitz. So we would tell the center to have eyes for 44 back here if his picture is clean.
Yeah.
The tackle has to get the safety down. So, again, some teams might cue the center for us. Some teams might cue the tackle or guard for who their reads are. If we can figure that out too, we might change those rules a little bit. But that's a little bit just about what we do. I try to find as many different examples of it.
No, I think that was great, Coach.
And we have we do have a lot of examples of a lot of those different variations of things.
No, I think that's fantastic, and I love how multi-formational and different looks you guys give in terms of just dressing up the whole scheme in terms of here's some motion, here's some false reads, here's some play action, here's just a screed. We're going to fake it, then we're going to run, then we're going to screed it. Like, is he that?
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say, we don't want guys just to be able to say, hey, read the center, or hey, read this, or read that. If you want to stare in the backfield, we'll give you something to look at. If I've always thought that if you can get those guys to stop their momentum for, a half a second, that gives a huge advantage to our guys. And the guys at Notre Dame probably did the best job of defending it, whether it was open-ended or tight end side pin pull, and it was honestly because how fast they were. So we should have gave them a little bit more to think about.
Well, and kind of going back to what we were just saying, just like for me, you almost make it like a series. Which for my wing, I spent about half my career coaching in either double wing or wing T. So that's kind of what okay, here's this, here's that. Like it's stuff to build on, which I think can be applicable very much to high school coaches in general. I mean, obviously, a bunch of high schools already run the scheme. I'm not saying they don't, but
right.
for the cell, okay, we're gonna run this, and then we'll run this, and this off of it, and it just builds it and creates itself, which I think is any type of good it's any type of good offensive system when you have stuff that just complements and builds off each other.
Yeah, and then figure out what works for you with your rules. It might be some guys want to pull the backside guard. I won't, if you can't reach the backside 3 technique or 2I or whatever it is back there, you're playing with a heavy shade and your guard can't get there, then pull them or read them. Or maybe you don't have 12 personnel, so you can't run that concept where you have the tight end and wing going down. Well, if you have a receiver that you can motion in, you can do it with him. You can really just, have the general ideas and figure out where the pieces fit.
Yeah.
I think it's the simplest scheme in the world to run as a coach. And I know our guys love doing it, and if you need to, I would recommend putting an offensive lineman at tight end if you have to, just to run the scheme.
Okay.
And for colleges, that might mean recruiting just an undersized center, at your wing T school that pulls a bunch. That's who our one tight end was. He was an undersized kid that could play in space. And we're like, all right, we'll move him to tight end. And, our other guy was more of a pass catching guy who was, willing just to get in the way. And I'm not telling you he was an unbelievable blocker, but he held his own on a lot of those blocks, which is all we ever asked of him. Ideally, if you can find 2 kids that can run, catch, and block, then you're in great shape. But
those kids go pretty quickly, Coach. Those kids go pretty quickly.
No doubt.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you coming on. As normal, the tags for the video will be in the bio, so you can go look back at and listen to any part of this podcast. And for those of you that watched it, same thing. Coach's contact information in terms of his Twitter to follow will be below. So give him a follow and reach out to him. Coach is always open to talking ball. Like I said, he did a bunch of stuff with Coach Guglielmo back in the spring spring, summer-ish, whenever you guys ended up doing that. I couldn't keep track. I think I joined in on one of them. My schedule's always so busy.
It was one of those months when we weren't allowed out.
Yeah. And so Coach, like I said, Coach is always open for talking ball. So reach out to him. Give this video a like and a share, and a subscription, just so more people can find it and be able to reach out to and kind of learn some. Coach, I want to thank you again for coming on. Appreciate it.
No problem. And if you guys have any questions or anything like that, feel free to DM me, or the best way is probably just to send me an email.
All right, I'll put your email down there in the bio as well then, Coach. So
awesome. I appreciate it.
And then again, that was another episode of the Gap Down Backer podcast.